Right. You have a whole 2 minutes to prepare for something that I needed around 50 minutes to prepare, but it's okay. Good morning, everybody. I apologize if I sound sick. I have been throwing up since I got up, so that is fun. Okay. Um, very quickly, we don't have a lot of time. Just give me a moment to get my bearings. Good morning. So we're going to be doing 5-minute scalps using, the 5-minute time frame from the lower Bollinger or upper Bollinger to the middle Bollinger. That's entirely what we will be doing today with our class. Now, granted, I know the market is opening in literally a minute. What we will be looking for specifically is for the lower Bollinger here to be pushed on the 5-minute time frame. This is for SPY. But I am going to be looking around at some other symbols and everything just to get my bearings. The first thing I do in the day before I take any trades is I want to find the sentiment of the day. So we check the dollar, which is the DXY, and we want to see if the dollar is pushing upward or downward. Generally, if the dollar is pushing upward, that means that equity weight is going to be weaker for the day. Generally, it doesn't always allude to that, but that's just how it generally works. Um, Other symbols I want to look at, excuse me, is the yen, because, obviously there's a lot of contention going on with Japan right now, and we need to be aware of that. We're not seeing any major signals within the yen today, so nothing major with that just yet. Hover back to the SPY. Our trade has not opened up yet. Again, we're waiting for either the push into the upper Bollinger or the lower Bollinger. We will not be taking any trades until either one of those ranges are pushed. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining. I apologize if I sound sick. Okay, let's see. So we have the DXY elevated. Let's take a look at our VVIX, which again, this is not the same as the VIX. VIX monitors a little bit differently. VVIX is elevated today. It is above that 98 range. So with the VVIX, if it's above that 98 range, that means that dealers are having to spend money on insurance to ensure their equity positions, which means that very likely it will be a selling type day. Um, if we continue to see the VVIX pulling upward, that will show continuation within that. Now, within the 5-minute time frame, I apologize, I feel really nauseous. Within the 5-minute time frame, we're seeing the VVIX pushing upward into the upper Bollinger, which can mean that it can pull downward, which can create some bullishness in the SPY. I'll be right back, everybody. We're watching for an entry right now, but I will be right back. Apologies for that. I am back. I'm pretty much going to be running to the bathroom and back all morning. I've just been throwing up, so I do apologize. Okay. Um, anyway, overall sentiment on the day. Let's see, SPY. Semiconductors are down. The RSP is the equal weight for the SPY. I always like to look at this because the equal weight gaining on the day generally means that there's a decent amount of weight being pushed into equities. See the HIG. The HIG is selling, and liquid is also selling. So we have many signals present for selling today. So we are going to be holding a bearish bias. I want to show a drawing and ignore the yellow and everything on the screen right now. I do apologize. I can't really edit it too much. But we are looking at this inverse up and handle, right, to the downside. To make this purple so that you can actually see it. Now that's going to be our thesis pretty much for the day. Now on our entry, see that we're starting to get ready to push up into this upper Bollinger range. Once we push up into this upper Bollinger range, and I do hide these drawings, but can't right now, we are looking at a very specific range right here, where once we push into the upper Bollinger, we do not want to see the market price push up above this range. Okay. If we see the market price push up above that range, this is going to show that basically our entry range is going to be in this area. So we don't want our contract, working against us. Um, Obviously we're going to be shorting here, so we're expecting our contracts to push downward rather than upward. Um, if we see this range break out, then this is showing a bullish cup, which that's not what we want to play puts into. So we're going to be waiting for the upper Bollinger push here. Do see plenty of bearishness on the day. Let's go back to the VVIX really quick. This is still very elevated, so um, we are going to be going with the bearish thesis so far for the day, which means that on the SPY, once we start pushing into this upper Bollinger range, that's when you're going to be taking those 0 DTE SPY puts. Now, with the puts, generally you want to try to aim for the bottom of the day, okay? But how we're going to be trading is taking very simple and easy positions. So once we take this range into the upper Bollinger, we're only taking the trade down to the 20 mall, okay? Which I'm going to hide the drawings here. The 20 mall is the same as the middle Bollinger. So if I say 20 mall, that's middle Bollinger. Wait for the push up, and then we will secure puts. Don't enter early. So just doesn't matter if it takes 5 minutes, doesn't matter if it takes 20 minutes. You wait for the push into the upper Bollinger. Now, on the daily time frame, and this isn't what I want us to focus on so much here with this class, is that the 5 mile range is currently right where we are. So with the 5 mile range being where we are currently, that can be a rejection range, especially if we're seeing bearishness within the market overall. So this is really starting to allude that this can be a very good put position here. So again, we're just waiting for that. We're not going to take it early. If we don't push into the upper Bollinger here, we will not be taking the put. Um, we have no reason to rush the position, so just wait it out and we will work on puts. Now, with that said, the reason why I was bringing up the low of the day is because generally you can target your puts towards that low of the day. Even though we're aiming for the 20 mil, we can target towards that low of the day. So if we wanted, cheaper puts, we could go with 681 puts. And once we hit that 20 mile range, and you go ahead and cut, take the profit there. Now again, we're not taking the positions until we push into the upper Bollinger. Not going to rush it or anything else. Now I do want to look at the data really quick. Let's see. On-farm productivity came in slightly elevated, so that's bearish. Well, hawkish. Hawkish can sort of allude to bearishness. We do have factory orders, but that doesn't matter too much. And we do have an FOMC speaker at, I believe, 11 a.m., but that also doesn't matter very much at all. So we're just waiting for our position here. Again, we're just going to be very, very patient. Excuse me. If we don't get that push into the upper Bollinger, then again, we're just not going to take the position because the entirety of these scalps is taking very, very easy and simple positions into a range that the market has already traded into. So using this example already, if we took the puts at this upper Bollinger, which we did not push into the range that I wanted, so we didn't, but if we did, if we pushed slightly higher, we would have secured those puts there, took them down towards the 20 mile, and as you can see, second we hit that 20 mile range, now we're starting to see buying. Every time you hit that 20 mile range, generally that's going to be the trend decision maker. So either you're going to start seeing major buying from that range or major selling. So taking the put position from the upper Bollinger towards the 20 mile, extremely, extremely safe here. Again, using the 5-minute time frame, that would have been, you know, let's see, a whole $1.60 worth of a put. So that would have been a very successful trade right there. Now again, we're just waiting for a position to open. And we're specifically going to be looking at QQQ, SPY, and SOX, which is semiconductors. Within QQQ, we are having the position opening. So once we start pushing above this 110, we can start taking puts down to the 606 range. Um, Taking, from this upper Bollinger to the middle Bollinger is obviously the safest trade here. But going with QQQ, um, I want to look at the contracts really quick. And I apologize, I can't really pull them up screen too much. I have to show them on my phone. But I am taking a look at the 608 QQQ puts, which are currently $158 roughly a piece. The move downward would essentially give us a whole, either $2 or $4 to the downside. So I am going to be looking to enter this put. Now that we are starting to push this upper Bollinger range, we should be beginning to enter our puts here. And let's see, I'm going to get mine for 153. Okay. And now we're just going to trade this down to the middle Bollinger. And once we get to the middle Bollinger, we will secure profit. Now that we have our position, everybody should be either watching a position at this point or actively in a position. Again, we're taking it down to this 608.33. Okay. Now, for the majority of you, if you only have a single contract, I want you to 100% cut once we hit the 20 mil. Doesn't matter if we're having a major sell-off day or anything else. Anything below that range does not matter. This is simply just a very easy scalp. So we're going from upper Bollinger to middle Bollinger. Okay. My puts are currently up about 15%. So nothing super major yet, but again, we're just waiting for this exit at the 20 mil. We're not overthinking the trade. We're not worrying about sentiment. We see the direction pushing downward. My puts are up almost 20% currently. And I do just want to quickly circle back to the VVIX. We are seeing this still extremely elevated. So again, this is telling us all the signals we want to see. We're seeing this rejection on the spot at the 20 mo. So very, very likely our QQQ puts are going to be hitting any second. Again, the majority of you, I want you taking profit at this 20 mo. Okay, that's the entirety of this lesson is to go from upper Bollinger to 20 mo. Now, if you have more than 2 to 4 contracts, then you can cut about 70 to 80% of your contracts at this 20 mo range and then aim for that lower Bollinger. But if you only have a single contract, you're going for that 20 mo range. From that 20 mo range, um, we will wait for the next trade. So simple as that. And we are just waiting for our exit. Our exit will be at the 608.31. So I 100% expect every single person that's listening to this right now to be cutting the majority of their positions at that range. Okay. Still seeing this push down within the SPY. This is very good. This is still alluding that we will get our exit as planned. Now, we're not looking through a whole bunch of other symbols or anything. I'm pretty much wanting to do a trade of how every single person would be replicating a standard trade, which means that the majority of you are going to be looking at this 5 minute time frame. So we are, for the large majority, going to be watching this 5 minute time frame. We will be looking at other symbols that will help us determine whether our trade is still good or not. And again, on this trade, I want to show a drawing, which I did have on the SPY, but I think it's going to show a little bit better here. Okay. We started taking our positions in this range. So realistically, we don't want to be seeing this push too much farther upward. Um, if we see that push towards that 1150, then that is going to be showing that very, very likely this is going to be forming a bullish cup on the day. Now, again, this is still our entry range. Um, Nothing about this has changed so far. And within this entry, we just again take from the upper Bollinger and target that middle Bollinger. We still have our VVIX extremely elevated. And let's just double check everything. SPY is sitting at that 20 mile range. If we continue to see the SPY reject this range to the downside, that will be helping us with our QQQ trade. Watching SPY to see if we do have a major bounce here or not. I don't believe we will be though. Our VVIX is still extremely elevated. It did pull down about 80 cents, which isn't a whole big deal right now to worry about. Let's go back to QQQ. And again, our exit is still going to be at that 608.37. So we are still targeting for the middle Bollinger slash 20 mo. SPY is seeing that rejection below the 20 mo, which that is very good. That is a signal that is telling us that within QQQ as well, should be seeing, that push downward. We do see our VVIX still holding weight pretty well, so still going to be sticking in this trade. Let's go back to SPY. We don't want to see the SPY build major support here, so we are going to be looking for that. I'm going to be taking another entry if we push into basically right into that 611 range. I'm looking for a rejection right in this range to start occurring. So I'm going to be taking additional position. And again, we're just looking for the 20 mo here. BVIX is pulling down very, very slightly. Still looking very good here. Back to the SPY really quick. Really looking for SPY to lose this level. That would basically take us from our upper Bollinger to the middle Bollinger within QQQ. Let's go back to QQQ. Okay, and I have taken an additional contract on that. So again, we're just waiting for our middle Bollinger here. Now, if SPY starts pushing into the upper Bollinger here, we will go ahead and cut those QQQ puts. So far, I still like the position though. Would have been really ideal if SPY pushed into the upper Bollinger just a slight bit further this morning, where we could have taken puts from there to the middle Bollinger. That would have been a really, really safe position. But overall, still seeing any signals of selling throughout the day. Check. PVIX still pulling down slightly, but this is still extremely, extremely elevated. Let's take a look at NVIDIA. NVIDIA had a push from the lower Bollinger all the way to the upper Bollinger, so that was very good. But it is at the upper Bollinger now, which does mean that it can be starting to pull backward. Same with Microsoft. Not the same with Apple. Apple can start pulling upward, while those others start pulling downward. And let's go back to our VVIX. Still pulling downward slightly. Now, with this cup formed on QQQ, and I am going to be continuing to hold these put positions here just because we did see NVIDIA and Microsoft push into the upper Bollinger. But with this bullish cup being formed here, we do expect bearish structure within the top of it. And even if we're, bullish on the day, the reason why we do expect the bearish structure there is every top of a cup generally has the bearish structure to pull downward, form the handle, and give us the breakout. So what we're looking for here with this position is to, again, short the top of the cup and take it towards that 20 mil range. Semiconductors pushing the upper Bollinger, which again does allude to pulling back downward. Same with SPY here, and we're not seeing SPY closing this cup, which that is a good signal. Take a look at Bitcoin really quick. Bitcoin, that same condition where it pushed upward, and because now it's pushing upward, can now pull downward. So I am seeing a lot of potentials for, pulling back downward again. Even though this didn't work exactly how we wanted, the short position is still here. Generally though, I would try to cut above that range. For example, those puts that I took in this upper Bollinger push. Generally, if we see it extended, you'd want to cut that range. However, again, just because of the conditions we talked about, there is still the short position here available. So we are looking for that. Now, within the SPY, we remembered that the 5 mile range was at the 684. And I want to go back to the SPY really quick. It was at that 684, which does mean that we can be testing all the way above the upper bounds of the 5 mile, which would take us all the way to the 686.62-ish. Um, Again though, with this pushing into the upper Bollinger, I still like the short position. Um, with EVVIX pulling downward, this is concerning, but again, this is still very, very elevated. We've seen this pull down all the way close to that $100 range and then jump back up all the way to 114 within the same day. So this can move quite a bit. I'm not really taking this as the signal that we're not having selling. If we continue seeing this pull down, then that would be showing that, but should start seeing bearish structure forming here within this cup. Let's go back to NVIDIA. NVIDIA is starting to taper a little bit here, which is, exactly what we're looking for. The 5-minute ADL is starting to pull downward. The ADL indicator is basically like a bank account, so if you see it pulling downward, funds are leaving it. If you see it pulling upward, funds are being entered into it. So we're starting to see the ADL pulling downward on a lot of these symbols. XY still elevated. Bitcoin is seeing that pull down from that upper Bollinger, which can translate throughout the rest of the equities. Seeing SPY tapering at the top a little bit as well. Let's check liquid and the HIG. They're still both selling pretty hard. So yeah, I do like the short position here still, even though it doesn't exactly look the best. Micron. Micron pushed into the upper Bollinger, which is starting to pull back. So that's one of those signals we're looking for. We're looking for that to start occurring within Microsoft. Let's swing back to NVIDIA. NVIDIA is still tapering the top out. So very good signals for our short positions here. Starting to see QQQ taper the top out. This is actually a really good um, learning opportunity because this is one of those, kind of bad situations when you're trading and how you can navigate it. So again, we did pull or we did start the puts at that range within the upper Bollinger. With the 5-minute time frame, generally when you push into this upper Bollinger, you go towards the 20-mile range. Um, However, sometimes you do very, very rarely have these extended pushes. If you have the extended push, you sort of just have to suck it up and either cut the position or add it to the previous position you had, excuse me. So what I did was I just added to the previous position. Again, I still see a lot of reasons why we can sell, even though we did have that buying, which we did not fully anticipate this buying towards this upside. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. Um, However, this is still a very salvageable trade, and that's what we're looking to do here. So SPY has pulled all the way to the 685.53, starting to pull down towards that 20 mile range again. So this is starting to give us our exit within QQQ and everything as well. On QQQ, we are looking at that 608.95. Let's check silver. What's going on with silver? Um, Daily time frame. Silver. So again with precious metals, and I know this may not be sentiment that everybody wants to hear, but anytime we get below this 20 mile range, and this has literally been for years now, precious metals generally sees a fairly large rally out of that 20 mile range. Now, with this 20 mile range pushing back up and now starting to push down again, and this is the daily time frame, we are starting to see this cup with potentially this bearish structure at the top of that cup that we do look for because again, with the bearish structure at the top of the cup, that's how we get the movement downward to create the liquidity for the handle and get the breakout. So I do like buying underneath this 20 mile range for precious metals overall. On SPY, we are still seeing our rejection here. So positions are starting to go in the way we want. The VVIX is starting to pull back up again, so all signals we want to see. And I'm going to circle back to NVIDIA and everything really quick. So Microsoft, we're seeing that tapering out at the top. That's good. We just need to see it pull towards that lower Bollinger, which this does also create the trade for that as well if someone wants to scalp it. I don't. I just want to focus on our QQQ trade. Let's check the video. We are seeing pull back like we want. So look for that middle Bollinger on NVIDIA. QQQ, we're starting to see that pullback like we want. SPY again from the upper Bollinger towards that middle Bollinger. So two very, very good trades today within the SPY so far. We did not take the SPY trades. We took the QQQ trade, which is still the working in progress. So let's see. I want to look at the BVIX again, starting to really pull back up. Which once we start seeing the VVIX pulling up, that's really telling you that big money is having to spend more money on their insurance premiums. So that's a very, very crucial signal to look for whether we're um, shorting or going long. Again, with QQQ, we're just looking for our exit here. We've looked at all of our other symbols, and we're seeing a lot of that bearish structure that we're really looking for. So with QQQ, we're just waiting for our exit at this point. Does anybody have any questions or anything? I know this wasn't the best example this morning, but hopefully you do see what we're trying to accomplish with these trades. SPY has two very, very great examples today. How we went from upper Bollinger to 20 ma. I do apologize for all these other drawings on here. It doesn't really help to see, but we went from the upper Bollinger to the middle Bollinger here, and again, upper Bollinger to middle Bollinger here. So this is how I do my scalps. Um, Very, very consistent, and I know that we are still within our QQQ trade, but That's exactly how you do your scalp positions. You target either the upper Bollinger or the lower Bollinger, and you take position towards that support. Um, which again is an extremely consistent position to take. Now let's see the VVIX still continuing to do its work. It's by having a little bit of a bounce off that 20-mile range, but I do expect it to continue downward into it further. Semiconductors pushed into the upper Bollinger, but with the upper Bollinger push, we can start to see it taper out. And it's video again. Microsoft, we're seeing that tapering, so that's good. The ES main, which is the specs. Um, Need to start seeing this pull back a little bit. We are seeing Bitcoin still pulling back, which is a good signal overall. Sorry, my cat's going crazy. Circle back to QQQ here. And we're just continuing to wait. We're seeing the ADL pulling downward within the 5-minute time frame, which is a very good signal for us. That is telling us that very, very likely we will be seeing um a continued weight lost out the symbol. So yep, upper Bollinger to the 20 mile or the lower Bollinger to the 20 mile. Extremely, extremely consistent. I know our QQQ trade is, taking a little bit to fully work out, but I'm still very, convicted here that we will be seeing our 609 range. Circle back to Microsoft, continuing to see it taper, so that is good. And NVIDIA did push up slightly again, but we are starting to see it taper down. So we're just being very patient and waiting for our position to fully play out. VVIX still extremely elevated. And within this SPY range too, remember that the 5 mile is at the 684 range. So if we truly reject this range, we will be heading down quite a bit today. So that's what we are really looking for. Our QQQ is giving us a little bit of a struggle. Now at this point, if we see QQQ push back up towards this 1276, that would be telling us that that very likely is that handle, which we do have to be, quite cautious of because it could be continuing to push up on us. Um, but I'm still seeing, again, all the signals that we're looking for overall. So I am still holding my QQQ puts here. And we're just waiting for it to taper out, waiting for our VVIX to continue pulling upward, waiting for something. Semiconductors still pulling downward. Let's check the SPY. SPY still struggling to push upward. Let's check NVIDIA and Microsoft again. Microsoft still tapering, still looking for that 5 mile range. NVIDIA, we do want to see taper out further. So push downward here is really what we're looking for. Just need to see our weakness within the QQQ already. A lot of it is this Meta Microsoft. Starting to form a bit of a head and shoulders here on SPY. I apologize for all the drawings. Kind of hard to see. Hold on. But we do have a bit of a head and shoulders forming here, which is good. That is alluding to continuation within the selling. EVIX still pulling upward, so we're still just holding on to our puts and waiting. Seeing SPY start to push down quite a bit further. QQQ starting to push down a little bit. We will be looking towards that 609 range. Not exactly the 609.24. Because we see the 20 mod pulling upward, once we push down towards it, it will start pulling downward. So we will be looking again a lot closer towards that 609 rather than the 609.20. But any of those ranges would be fine to secure profit. Yep, still just seeing a lot of signals I like. Still seeing tapering within our semiconductors. Starting to see tapering within the HIG and within liquid as well, which can be pushing us back downward. Bitcoin still seeing that selling from, this morning it's been pretty much selling the entire morning. So that does allude to selling within equities. We're seeing soft starting to tape out further. Exactly what we want to see. We do want to see NVIDIA pulling downward. Um, really do need NVIDIA to pull downward for QQQ to give us our level that we're looking for. VVIX is pulling up, so and all of our signals for our exit are very, very strong here. I'll be somewhat salty if we don't get our exit, because everything's lined up for it. So, and we're looking a lot closer towards that 90 or that 609 range rather than the 609.30. But taking the 609.30 is extremely safe as well. So just ensure you secure profit on this move downward. We do not want to squander it here. Within the SPY, we could still be seeing this right shoulder. So even though we are pushing below this 20 mile range, we can see it pull back upward and then really have that major sell of the day. So be aware of that. Let's check semiconductors. Still pulling down here and weakening. Q, same ordeal. And now we wait for our exit. It is really stupid sometimes, but we just have to take each trade the exact same and unfortunately sometimes we do get these symbols where, SPY gave us our extremely consistent easy moves today. Um but we did not see that within QQQ. QQQ has been holding extremely strong. But I do think we will get our exit. It's just did not work exactly as planned, but um, it'll still work out in the end, which is what matters. So I have multiple contracts here. I will be taking profit on a single contract any second now. Just waiting for a little bit more of a push downward. Okay, and this is going to be our exit on one contract. And we're just waiting for this limit order to fill. Okay, got the one contract sold. And now that we do have, profit on the day, we don't want to waste our profit. So I am still within a contract. And because I am within a contract, and because we're using this range to secure profit, if we pull out of this range, then I just need to cut my puts off. Okay. Because we're not here to, be married to the position. We're not here to hold it for too much longer than necessary. So if we start pushing up from here, just cut the rest of the positions off. Don't worry about leaving money on the table or anything. We always just wait for the upper Bollinger or lower Bollinger entries into the 20 mile. Okay. If we see this pushing downward from here, then the runners will, continue running and we'll make even more profit on that. So, um, everybody should be green on the day here. That is in the chat. So, now on these secondary puts, you should be putting a stop loss basically right at this range. Um, that way, if we start pushing back upward, that your position will just get stopped out rather than you being red on the position. So um, definitely keep that in mind. See, seeing our very, very good push downward. If we continue to see the push downward, then we will be looking for the lower Bollinger for the exit on our runners. Um, for those that only had the single position, you don't have to worry about leaving money on the table. Again, anything underneath this 20 mile range doesn't matter. It literally does not matter at all when you're taking the trade from the upper Bollinger to the 20 mile. Okay. Anything below that range really doesn't mean anything. Um, doesn't matter if you left $100 on the table or $1,000 on the table. Have to secure your profit. Okay. If you don't secure your profits here, in the trade that you're looking for, then you're going to lose money. Um, so yeah, this was the exact example we were looking for. Um, and now we're just waiting to see if we're going to push down further. Um, to get this next move, we're seeing the VVIX still pulling upward, which, again, that is a bearish signal. That is telling us that big money is having to spend more on their insurance positions. We are seeing the SPY push into this lower Bollinger, which on QQQ, that very, very likely will pull us down towards this 606 range. So I do think we still have some room within these contracts for the runners. Let's check Microsoft and Nvidia. So Nvidia challenging that 20 mall like we wanted, and let's check Microsoft. Microsoft finally getting ready to challenge that 20 mall. So this is still showing us that we do have further room down within QQQ, SPY. Okay, so is there any questions so far based on the trades we did? Again, everybody should be green or be seeing, watch listed contracts being green from this morning. And I'm going to go ahead and cut this second position off here. Um, Not because I think sentiment's not good or anything. I just, um, generally around this time, my daughter starts waking up, so I don't like to be in zero DTs too much further around this time. But again, within QQQ, this room to the lower Bollinger is very good, but you don't take an additional trade here. Okay, you always wait for either the upper Bollinger or the lower Bollinger. So let's just kind of go over how to continue the day out. So now that we've basically exited, the majority of our trades in terms of the 0 DTE, at this point, now we're waiting for either a very, very quality trade to open, or we're just not going to enter any more trades. There's no reason to continue doing 0 DTE trades if, the trade worked out as planned. No reason to overtrade and force things. Just wait for the positions to open and um, engage that as they are. Friday experience or expiry put. Friday expiry put at the 686. Honestly, I think it's very good just because I think that um the market is trying to overall turn into a bear market. We're seeing the 5 mile looks like being rejected again today, which we talked about in last night's video. If we see this 5 mile rejected, what's underneath it? It's the lower Bollinger. From this current range, that's a whole additional $4 to $5 downward. And seeing how lower Bollinger mechanics, we generally push into the lower Bollinger on day one, and day two, we generally see a lower low. Um, from this current range, that could be a whole $6 to the downside, if not more. So I definitely like that position. As long as we continue rejecting the 5 mile here, but we're seeing a lot of signals that that's occurring. Our VVIX is extremely elevated today. We're seeing um, s- we're seeing the big and liquid, which is the upper echelons of high yield credit or corporate credit, selling off, which generally alludes to selling within equities. see Bitcoin just continuing to sell off today, which, Bitcoin's pretty much entirely owned by institutions right now. So Bitcoin generally is going to be trying to trade toward the rest of the equities overall. So, um, if we see selling within Bitcoin, usually that's going to allude to selling within the rest of equities. Um, QQQ still pushing down that lower Bollinger. So anyone holding those runners should be doing very, very well. Now, with the sentiment being bearish today, I am not looking for calls because again, potentially the push downward today could be all the way to the lower Bollinger. We don't have any moving averages underneath us other than the 100-day moving average, which I don't track, and the 200-day moving average, which that's really that range that we're looking for. Go ahead and turn off the moving averages, but completing this very, very large inverse cup downside, excuse me, is kind of what we're looking for overall. Does anyone else have any further questions before we end this stream today? I know it's a fairly quick stream, but I've not been feeling good this morning, so I do want to rest as much as I possibly can. Um, but hopefully this was a really great example of how to do, extremely safe scalps, even when we had today give us a little bit of a tricky situation with QQQ. Um, you know, Today was a very, very good trade within QQQ because it did extend when we had our first entry, which not only gave us a second entry here, um, but it also gave us the opportunity to really see how, some of these further extensions into the upper or lower Bollinger can play out. Um, Generally, you do just have to try to buy into it again if you see it leg up, but with today's structure, it looked extremely good to continue holding those puts, so I was not very worried about that at all. Love to hear it. Very, very awesome to hear. So yeah, that's going to be the class and the stream this morning. Again, if there's any other questions, right now is the perfect time to do it before I head out. Um, Again, I'm not going to be trying to engage a lot of additional trades on the day. You don't want to overtrade. Um, you want to take trades that are extremely easy to see and pretty much are going to go the way that you want to go. You don't want to be fighting your trades because those are the types of trades that will usually cost you in the end. So that's what I do. I look for either this lower Bollinger range, which even on SPY, even with selling, being very present throughout the overall equities and everything, um, we still have room for calls towards this middle Bollinger. So if you want to overtrade today, if you want to take that position, there is the potential to go all the way back up from this 679 up to the 682. But again, with the sentiment overall being bearish on the day, I try not to take contracts against the sentiment too much. Because if you're playing against the sentiment, all it takes is a tweet or some random news to really mess your positions up. So I don't like that. Um, if we're having a major selling day overall, then the likelihood is that puts are going to be paying out rather than calls. So that's that. Levels on the SPY. So for today, and this is the daily time frame, really wanting to zoom in on the moving averages here because we're really starting to enter into a bear trend. And we talked about this in last night's video, how if we see this 5 mile range rejected today, that we're really going to be heading downward, for multiple different reasons. Okay, and I do apologize for all these drawings here. However, I do want to write the moving averages and everything. Just to make this a little bit more clear, and let's go to the 4-hour time frame. I want to Bollinger Bands. But what we're looking for here now is that we do have this bearish structure. We do have this head and shoulders built here. From this head and shoulders with the prior inverse cup built, we were expecting this to not be a cup and handle because this was already, this portion right here was already a part of the previous structure. So I wasn't looking for this to pull upward and turn into a cup. I was looking for essentially this block right here to be its own structure. So we're seeing this head and shoulders forming here, and it's looking very, very good. With that head and shoulders forming, should pull us back down all the way towards that 670 range. Um, I did make a mistake in the video last night. I said that OPEX is tomorrow. It's not until the 20th. I was having a discussion with somebody about OPEX, and for some reason I don't know, I just got caught on talking about that. So, apologies for that, but OPEX is 2 weeks away. So, um, we won't be having the X dividend until that time. So, we still have a lot of bearishness to play out. We still have, again, this inverse cup to form to the downside. We still have to push through the lower Bollinger, have the upward consolidation from there, and from that range we can, continue pushing downward. But I wouldn't be looking to the upside too much further at this point. Um, Again, this looks like an extremely bearish structure. We're seeing just bearishness throughout the entire market, really. The VVIX, see on the daily time frame, this thing has just been absolutely flying. So this is telling us that dealers are having to spend more money. Um, if dealers are spending more money, then they're going to want to make that money back. So selling is how they do that. USD JPY still absurdly extended. DXY still pushing upward on the day, so this is still just alluding to continued selling. Let's see what else. And again, our higher echelons of corporate credit are still seeing some selling today. So we're seeing selling within the HIG, we're seeing selling within liquid. So we are starting to see the upper levels really starting to shake a bit. So um, the downside overall, I think, is very, very, very strong here. I would not be looking towards the upside too much. Um, if anything, I think dealers may try to do a push up to retest the 5 mile, reject it again, and continue downward. Reason why I say that is, and I want to go back in the daily time frame a bit, is that when we start having these major pushes, and this is the bullish example here, but the bearish example would be, the opposite, which would be pushing underneath that 20 mile range towards the lower Bollinger up to the 20 mile to the lower Bollinger, rinse repeat to the downside, rather than seeing this push up to the upper Bollinger, the 20 mile to the upper Bollinger, 20 mile, upper Bollinger, 20 mile. Um, the downside would be the opposite of that. So that's what I'm really expecting is that we're going to be seeing a lot of that retest the 20 mile, push the lower Bollinger, come up and retest, push down until we're through this, correction or major bear market. So, okay, everybody, I'm going to make sure to save this VOD in um, YouTube channel. So if you want to go over it again, can. If you want to share with anybody who scalps, this is again a very, very good example on the day. For a day that didn't go exactly our way either. So, um, Other than that, I'm going to be around, but and I'm just sick, so I'm not going to be super present. But um, yeah, I hope everybody had a good day. I hope everybody enjoyed the class, and I will talk to you in tonight's video or on Weeble or somewhere else. So